Hello everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. Let me know if you can't hear me. It looks like my microphone's on. I'm looking at all the levels. I'm sure you'll let me know in the chat if something's off. Apologies before I was setting up my live stream and there was a conflict between two test streams that I put up and one accidentally went live for a brief pocket of time, so I had to get rid of it. But we're up. Where are most people from? I'm assuming from the US. That's the only reason I try and do live streams this late at night, to accommodate all of you guys. So I hope you're doing well. Okay, while you start putting your questions up, yeah, Armored Ghost, I was making my tea just before. There's some really good questions from the last couple of videos. I'll just read out a couple of the comments, actually. Some really good comments under the last couple of videos while you guys start throwing down your questions. By Two-Face on the video Death and Love, you know, before, during and after, the pain you might feel. He said, not that love isn't worth pursuing, but when I start finding myself feeling down, I always like to take a step back and think about what I did during my day and acknowledge how I wouldn't have been able to do any of that if I had a girlfriend or wife. They always guilt trip you, nag you, manipulate you, try to get you to stop enjoying your hobbies or hanging out with your friends. This always happens. In literally every relationship I've ever been in, they're all about control. And a lot of guys are fine with this, as long as she's giving him the goods. But the older I get, the more I realize the goods aren't that magical. My hobbies and freedoms are far better. I kind of, I think the older you are, they are magical. They're like living in a waking dream, and real life doesn't compare with the proximity of a woman or the anticipation of sex. But when you get past midlife and all those chemicals subside, then it's just something else you can enjoy, but you're aware of the price and the things that you give up. On the video, It's All Your Fault from now on that I made, Aussie Manly Man made a nice comment. He said, I'm a guy who makes things happen. Between my trade and my contracts, there isn't much that I can't make happen. So whenever someone, man or woman, says to me, can you do this or that or something for me, my first word is no. Then I say, tell me exactly what you want and I'll think about it. By saying no at first, it makes them ask for even less than they would normally, and they don't expect me to do it. Women just expect men to be the white knight for them. It also puts me in the mind frame that not doing it for them is okay. I've already told them no, so to say no again isn't that hard. That's a good point. You get better at exercising the first reflex of hang on, no, or hang on, no, let me think about it. It's always a pause. That's what the no is. And when you train that, rather than the first biological impulse from men is to say yes to the female because it's so connected to the biological drive. If you can train yourself to pause, which is in effect a no, and even state that, I think that's a healthy thing. Thanks for that comment, Aussie Manly Man. And the popular, I didn't know it was going to be this popular, the recent one I did of whatever her name is, Tommy whatever, what does she value? Bodo actually said a funny one after seeing her rant. He said, who hurt you, Tommy? Not all men are like that. I thought that was funny. John M said, TL, Tommy is definitely the type to hit a woman with a windmill punch and exclaim, I'm showing my love for you. These narcissistic projectionists aren't even on one of my scale of attractiveness. Yeah. I've noticed that even when I was growing up, if you make a woman laugh, she'll punch you and say, oh, stop it. She's not even angry. So a reflex of being violent and aggressive, you can actually tell a lot from someone's natural reactions. Bernard said, You didn't even need to mention TL. You could just leave a blank space and we could have filled it in with any woman's moniker from our everyday experience. Exactly it. When Spitzen actually said to me about PTSD's flashbacks, it's pretty much it. It's the everyday girlfriend experience. Like they're not all exactly like TL, but it's not that uncommon. People like to think, wow, she's really angry. Something really extreme must have happened to her. No, like I said in the video, it's just a public expression of something that they normally do in private or amongst their friends. It's pretty casual for them. One funny comment I got from a guy, I'm not going to name him, but you get these comments from people that just always think I need to find the right woman or I'm angry at women. I'm not. But you should point out what's ridiculous or is not right or is dysfunctional in society. He said, yeah, we get it. It's an entitled woman. Ignore her, build yourself, and find a good gal. Anyway, Dino said, there's something narcissistic and robotic-like about such women. And Antonio correctly said, it's a performance. They are playing a script for supply. Antonio means narcissistic supply. They do that fairly often. People with NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they don't really show their real self. They put on an act, much like CEOs. You know, when you go to work, you hate the fakeness. Hey, how's the weekend? How's that football team? Like, there's fake conversation. Narcissists are always like that, even in their private life. They put on a front to get some sort of supply from you, to take things from you. Bobby has said, a choice between A, a new Ducati Multistrada, or B, Tommy. Pick one. Not hard to pick which one. An individual says, I also don't believe that she said anything about her happiness and contentment. I remember when she was all over my Facebook feed a few years ago with all my friends sharing her rants. She never smiled. She was always angry. I think that she has been angry for so long that she doesn't know how to be happy. Sure, following politics 24/7 might do that to a person. That's an important point. People, whatever you follow, whether it's in the manosphere or politics, whatever you spend all your time with, gentlemen, that's the relationship you have, and it imprints itself on you. That's the kind of person you pattern yourself through and against. But and he continues, sure, following politics might do that to a person, but I think that deeper down, she's just an angry person. I believe that she was looking for a man, someone outside of her, to fill a hole, and surprise, surprise, it didn't happen. I wonder if she was somehow able to get the 7-foot-tall billionaire, if she would be happy. Yeah. And Tanzel said, if she's a fun holiday, I'd hate to see what a miserable holiday looks like. Okay. On to the questions. Throw them at me, people. I'll start looking at them. Dunstan asks, where do you think relationships will go between men and women in 2021? I think they're going to go down, and they're going to change very much, given the way the world's changed now. Online, I think the party's over. In a lot of ways, the left-leaning, gynocentric circus show, a lot of that's subsiding because necessity and a lot of survival and fear has taken place. People are forced to be more responsible, and I hope act more like adults. I could be wrong, but I think that party's over, especially if these kind of house arrests and quarantines continue. I mean, who's going? They already don't have much of an interest in online dating, and the apps are slowing down. They're always sending you. I notice now. I haven't looked at dating apps for a while, but they're pummeling me. They're pummeling me all of a sudden with multiple little messages that are popping up on my phone. I'm saying, why are they messaging me so frequently in these last 1 or 2 weeks? It's because I've been in lockdown and no one's using them anymore. So I think if things keep going like this and we're going to have this kind of life in some sort of roller coaster fashion for the foreseeable future, I think the past has it's not going to be the same anymore. And the good thing about it is maybe the frustrations between men and women will be less because we won't have time to entertain those things anymore. We could before because the world was could afford to entertain it. Viatalika 100 says, how do you deal with judgment of self and judging of others? I've learned to empathize away and think who I am to criticize anyone. I don't know the full picture while self-deprecating often. I'm not sure if I quite understand you, but I'll just go with the first half of it. How do I deal with judgment and self-judging of others? Judgment and discerning objectively, like the sky is blue, they insulted me, but not always looking for the worst scenario. Don't always be ready to fight. Don't always be ready to be offended. So there's a difference between that. There's nothing wrong with judging and discerning. And even with yourself, healthy, realistic judging. Oh, I dropped the cup and it broke. I did something wrong. There's nothing wrong with that kind of rational approach. But being ready to hate everything or feeling like everything's hopeless, I think that's not productive. And just think of it this way. The longer you do that, after a while, I'd hope you'd wake up and say, look, nothing good comes of this. How about if I just start trying to think glass half full when it's practical, when it does make sense? So for myself, I try and have a glass half full approach whenever possible, not to fool myself, but because it's rational to do so. If something's awful, I can't pretend it's not. But if there's a positive way to look at something, or if there's a way to learn from it or to move on, or if I can't fix the situation, then I let it go. I don't like being frustrated. So judgment, there's nothing wrong with it. Judging others, I would judge and discern them fairly, the way you would yourself, in sort of a fair way. Don't put someone down if you wouldn't appreciate that being done to you. So that's what I mean about fair judgment, like realistic judgment. Burkat Ulwin, what do you think about Spitzen's documentary? This video may be the only thing we'll have left to future generations after we all get shadow banned. It's really good. I put a lot of work into it. I really like the personal approach. Spitzen is great. I think it's why I kind of get along with chatting with him. He approaches communicating this stuff very personally, and I think that's what a lot of guys resonate with, because more and more guys are being pushed into a dark corner and being dismissed. And he's kind of, like I hope I'm doing, allowing us to sort of be personal and open and just talk and not be afraid and step out into the sunlight and have a bit of fun and talk and express yourself, not kind of censor yourself in a gynocentric lexicon all the time. So I think it's great. I must admit, I haven't watched the whole thing. I think I've gotten halfway through, but from what I've seen, it's great. It's something that I'll definitely save myself. I was listening to it while I was out on a jog today. Nico Greco, your thoughts on dating girls in the Philippines, Thailand, etc.? Fine. My point is, I wouldn't uproot my life and spend so much money and focus my life on, like some guys, they want to find a wife and they move overseas. It's all focused on women. I don't know, maybe in a few decades I'll get to an age where I'm bored with everything else and that's the only flicker of sunshine left in me, and I think, yeah, why not? But for me, that much focus on women, that much money, attention, that much effort to move to another country and find a bride, or even just for a good time, too much of a cost. I don't find sex that important. Christopher Merkovich, I noticed in our communication style between men and women are always elevating themselves, how great they are, even though they're doing an ordinary task. Men just have a tough day. Why? I think women have to self-aggrandize because underneath it, because they operate naturally from a passive state as creatures, we don't get noticed until we do something, until we talk to women, until we ask them out, until we do something worthy of being praised. A woman can be noticed just by sitting there and looking pretty. And she's learnt to, and her biology is geared and connected to operating by being valued just by being themselves and not having to do anything other than by standing out superficially. So I think that's why, especially today, because they've burnt the bridge with, approaching almost 100 years now with feminism, they've actually burnt the bridge of men. So they're on their own. Almost every woman out there is a lowercase feminist. Even though they say they aren't, you ask them whether they believe in wage gap, whether they think there's a patriarchy, whether they think a lot of the talking points of feminism hold water, and they actually do agree with most of them. The thing is, because now that they believe this and they've trained their daughters for a few generations, they all this is normal. This is like sunshine outside in summer. So it's hard for them now. So they have to build themselves up, talk themselves up, show themselves in movies like the female Ghostbusters and other movies where they kick the ass of guys, and they have to pump themselves up because now they've burnt those bridges, the cooperative bridges with men, and now they're on their own. Now they're vulnerable. And so I think there's a collective unease amongst women as a collective psyche going, we need to do something. We need to, I don't know what it is. It might be society's way of getting women to contribute now, getting them to pay more taxes and so forth. I'm pretty sure that's one aspect of it, but they have to. So they have to beat their chest more than guys typically do. We tend to don't appreciate guys kind of acting tough and beating their chest and acting macho. Women, if they don't do it because they've put themselves on their own, they're almost invisible unless they just show their TNA. And that's all they're doing today. They haven't evolved enough to know how to do anything else. And can they? Men have evolved through a millennia to be the doers, and now in a flick of an eye, in the blink of an eye, women are expected to sort of leapfrog and do that. It's hard enough for men. I don't know how women are going to do it. I don't think they're going to be in a lot of pain for a few decades because a lot of men aren't going to forget. Not that men are bitter, but you can't keep holding on to feminist talking points and laughing at these sitcoms and believing in the patriarchy, mansplaining and pay gap and all this stuff, all the while saying I'm not a feminist. It's stupid. Men aren't dumb. And because the environment's so tough for men today, we have to be smarter. We're very skeptical of women. We just don't believe what they say anymore because they're going along with everything. More and more, it's not just a news story you hear or you read a book of some well-off man that's gotten divorced. Everyone knows people that are divorced. Everyone knows their best friend, working class men that can't see their kids, who live in a basement, like have to build their lives up, have been tossed out and thrown away. And so, long story, long answer is I think women have to pump themselves a lot more today because they've burnt their bridges. Maybe it's a way of faking it until they make it. I don't know. Because basically now they have to be independent. They have to be. Because they've been yelling it for so long, it's kind of like, okay, see you later, be independent. So, Han, what's your opinion on take women's rights away to solve feminism? Feminism is not the problem. TFM talks about that. That's a solution. That'd work. It would, but I don't see it happening. So I don't think it's crazy. I'm not saying we can or should do it, but it's not applicable in today's environment. How are you going to do it? If there's a way to do it. But again, a lot of the guys, like, I'm not sure if a lot of the guys that want women's rights taken away, what rights exactly? Because, for instance, there's a lot of things that feminism's given women that I am actually grateful for, that it's shown what women actually are. It's taken the rose-colored glasses off, and I don't have a foolish idea of why or if someone loves me or cares about me or really values me. Now, because it's all out in the open, men really have an opportunity to see what women of their own accord, of their own individual selves, the woman you're individually picking that you think is special and different from everyone else, if she's the same as everyone else, as she seems to be more and more today, it helps you decide not to be with this person. This person's not going to be the special person to raise my children or to marry. You know, more and more that saying is, you know, marriage today is the delusion that one woman differs from the other. It wasn't so much that way, I think, in the past, but today it is. Christopher Merkovich, what's your opinion on the movie from 1974, Swept Away? I think there's a lot of hidden gems on how women really are. Yeah, I remember I saw the newer one by Guy Ritchie when he was still married to Madonna. And I think it's pretty much a remake. The guy in that movie is actually the son of the guy who played it in the original 1947 Swept Away. So it's a nice correlation. But yeah, basically, if anyone hasn't seen it, I highly recommend watching it. It's basically a rich woman. She's on a yacht and she's treating the waiters on her yacht like crap. And she's the worst kind of woman. Basically, a storm happens and then they get stranded on this island, and only her and the waiter that she treated badly survive. And then the waiter's an old school guy that basically tells her that you have no authority on this desert island anymore. And he learns how to hunt and he's self-sufficient, and she won't be able to survive without him. It's a very telling movie about not that how you should treat women, but people's natural place when you strip all the luxuries away. I actually preferred the newer version by Guy Ritchie because there are a few lines in there he added that really showcase more about male and female nature. So I'd recommend that one, the Madonna one. I never liked Madonna as a performer or an actress, but in that movie I like her a fair bit because of the character she plays in the story. So watch it. It's a really good movie. Not a fan of romantic dramas, but that's one of my favorites. Dunstan, with so many guys unable to get women now due to many reasons, where do you think things will go between their sexes? I think I answered that question just before, Dunstan. Not sure, but it's not going to stay the way it was. So I think in a lot of ways, the drums look like they're pointing in men's favour. Not as though, haha, we're going to get revenge, but the world will maybe be a bit more sensible than it's been to this date. So I don't think we're going to be as irritated. I mean, have you noticed on YouTube already, in social media, feminism doesn't make much of a sound anymore. I don't know if it's not promoted in the same way they're not promoting, say, the corner of the manosphere. But it's kind of publicly being talked about. It's become so clannish that no one talks about it anymore. And now particularly, like, they're not talking about any of this rubbish. Everything's very survival based, which, fine. It should be at this time anyway. Although I still think a lot of the stuff that's going on is hyperbole in terms of quarantine and everything. That's just me. Clash Crasher, I value truth and rationality a lot. Do you think there's value in analysing why a woman lost interest? If there's no logical explanation, it's hard to find peace in the truth if I can't be found. Yeah, it's probably not. And even if you can get to talk to your ex and get closure, she'll probably say anything just to kind of be done with it and get you to go away. She'll say anything. So you won't really get closure. She'll say anything. Women, a lot of times women don't use words for what they mean. They use words like just feelings that have sound, just to sort of sway conversations one way or another to get what they want. So I don't think it will get closure, and there's no point trying to rationalize a woman's feelings. She might have decided to leave emotionally, and you're trying to figure it out rationally. You're using a tool to figure out something that's not measurable by the tool of rationale. So the hard thing, which you can probably notice from guys in the last generation or so, with things like existentialism, contemplation, philosophy, introspection, meditation, is guys are now having to be able to exercise a new tool aside from irrationality, which is letting go, philosophy, and having a lighter grip on things. You know, a ruler can't save you with women. You need to be philosophical about things. And I would contend men have a better strength, a practical philosophical strength, much more than women. Women, when they try and do philosophy, most of them go off into feelings, even though they think they're doing philosophy. I can just hear some women, not me, not all, majority. Omega Sigma, human, would you think that replacing income tax with a national sales tax would serve to even up the contribution gap between men and women? Again, why? I'm not sure if hamstringing society now because of what women have done and what men have allowed women to sort of push too far. I don't know. Economics, I'm not the best person. This is a question for TFM, not me. Sorry. You know, people keep saying, human, you're going to get a bachelor tax too, or a singles tax. I wouldn't be surprised. And they'll probably do it in a way that's not direct, in that they give benefits to couples, but not to singles. So I can see a lot of those things coming where I might start to suffer if I don't start playing gynocentric ball. Burkhart said, I'm 25-year-old. Despite my intellectual aspirations for the last 7 years, I had an unbeatable craving to have children. Will this biological impulse fade with age? I don't know, man. You only know. I know for myself, I never had that impulse. So I'm aware that I'm sort of fortunate in that respect, where there's guys that are really struggling with it because they want it and they rationally know they can't. And that's a good thing, because I've said in the video, knowing what you want but being rational enough to realize the dangers is exactly what would be a good father too. You would protect your children from dangers. You would protect your wife and family and so forth. They're the kind of genes that should be propagating, but unfortunately the environment's too dangerous. If women weren't the environment that was dangerous, that wouldn't be a problem, but they are the thing we're trying to sort of get with. But before, the world used to be a bit more dangerous, but women weren't. Now it's flipped. The world is safe, but women are dangerous. It's just ridiculous. And the species won't go on without people reproducing. That's the really effed thing about it. Arch. I own a tattoo studio. I know I witness female nature on a daily basis. Oh, geez. I can just imagine the pigs you get. Flirting, demeaning their partners, etc. Do you think that their actions become more bold based on their chance of getting attention. Yeah, especially if they're getting tattoos, I'd imagine. They'd be pretty ballsy, or want to be. That's something I've always wanted to ask someone who sort of does tattoos. Do they think that if you were someone who was a bit more introverted and then you finally took the leap to get a tattoo and then you sort of got confidence and you got more tattoos, would that actually make someone more bitchy? Whereas before they crossed the line of getting tattoos, that would somehow keep them at bay. The more tattoos, but put it this way, the worst kind of personalities, the more tattoos they get, the worse they get, maybe. I'm not sure. Charthers, Human, do you recommend getting a master's degree in philosophy? No, not specifically. If personally you want to do it, fine, if you have a personal interest. But in terms of something to make money on, look, I don't know. In the future, I think like a lot of mental illnesses, they're just going up and up. So if you, a growth industry is mental illness. Be a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, there will always be jobs. Don't worry about IT and any of that. Be a mental health professional. I'm being glib, and I'm not saying to get into it, because just imagine the people you're dealing with and how that rubs off on you. Especially if you've got empathy. I've met and I've dated people in that industry. It really rubs off on them, and it doesn't make their personal life any better. Because put it this way, if you're not built, if you don't have empathy, you're no good as a therapist or a psychologist or helping someone. If you are, you can't help but get affected, and then your personal life suffers. It's a hard industry, I think, to be in. And I think there's very few analytical people who can really compartmentalize, who can switch very easily. But if you're just a middle of the road human being, I think it's a very hard industry, but it's going to grow. And I can see a lot of people getting into it, and the people getting into it are going to suffer. They're going to exacerbate and make the people who need help suffer even more, because most of the people who get into the industry just do it so they can help themselves and find out about things so they can help themselves, and then they kind of think that they've got a buffer and then they can help other people, but they still haven't even fixed themselves. Real names not given. Yesterday, 3 guys were talking about retiring before they kick the bucket. What's your opinion on retiring? I've never really focused on it. I've always just tried to be sensible about making my present keep growing, if that makes sense. You know, keep putting away a little bit of money, live below my means, just be sensible. And as my life's gone on, things have gotten better and comfortable. And I know that when you get older, like, I don't believe in not living and suffering and saving it all for that rainy day that may never come. You know, the lights might go out before then. So I'd say if you can semi-retire or mentally live that way, let go in that way, now, whatever age you are, and live for yourself, because that's what retirement is. You know, I'm going to finally live for myself now. Not in a selfish, like I don't care about anyone around me and I'm not going to be compassionate, but in terms of like, I come first, life is simple, I'm not going to live beyond my means, money's not important, people, cooperation, and just the simple things in life. That when you think about all that stuff, that's what people want to enjoy when they retire. Do that now. That's what I think about retirement. So I've never thought about it. I've always tried to kind of, why not retire now? And it's not just about money. It's just the way you think. Enjoy your life now. Yvette Talika, tech question. What's your process to making music? I play around with new music. I don't do anything sort of really, I don't think I'm that great, but I just play around with FL Studio. So I hope that answers it. Jeff Jones, have you seen Man Woman Myths return to YouTube? Yeah, apparently he's gone through some hard times. He doesn't look like he's doing very well. He's got some mental issues. I've heard a couple of stories, nothing confirmed, but it's I think it's based around he's had a hard time with his ex. I won't say anymore, but yeah, I've seen the unfortunate return of man-woman myth. It's sad to see, though. I wish him the best. SR Nick, thank you for the super chat, man. I really appreciate it. His super chat question is, hey human, I've got one hypothetical question. What do you think would happen to women and society if suddenly all men became red-pilled MGTOW? Keep up the great work, mate. Thank you. They'd have to change. But again, those kind of theoretical situations, it might make us feel bad, feel good, but it's a fantasy. It's analogous to asking women who watch The Notebook, what if all men suddenly became like Ryan Gosling, like that? Women aren't going to be like that, you know. All men aren't going to be red-pilled and MGTOW and have firm stances on female nature and call women out and not be sucked in as we have been from the beginning of time by, you know, a short skirt and a smile and a flicker of the eyebrows. And not going to happen. Nice fantasy, though. But if all men change, obviously women would have to adjust. Not anywhere near enough men change. Remember, like, in a tribal setting, you have to protect every woman, but you can kill hundreds of men for every woman. So given that, say one man gets woken up, you've got 99 men there who aren't woken up, and all those women are going to be fine. That one woman's going to be fine if 99 men. You're asking for, you know, if one woman is as valuable as 100, you can't just get one man to be red-pilled or awakened. You have to get 90, you have to get 100 men, because even if she has one man, she'll take the one man. Pretty much you have to get the majority of men to sort of wake up and curb their desires and say, all right, brothers, we're all going to stand together. Men aren't like that. A lot of men, too many men compete for women. A lot of men who are successful compete for women. They do everything they do for women. They drive fast cars and they're successful and they run businesses for women. What do you guys think about the color grading I tried today? I tried something really different. Let me know if you like it. If not, I'll take it into consideration. The MGTOW documentary, now it's up again. A few people were saying to Spitzen that the volume was too low. So I tried to process it, help him out and boost the audio a bit. So the documentary is back up on his channel. The audio should be louder. But I think that's what he did. He basically took the old one down and put a new one up with higher volume. Jeff, do you think the MGTOW channels who take a more welcoming to women are good influence, or do you think they're counterproductive? I think basically my stance has always been, I'm not one of these people that says, oh, I won't talk to women. I'm fine talking with anybody who's civil and normal and intelligent. Man, woman, doesn't matter what part of the manosphere, I'm happy to talk to anybody. But I do make my content for guys, and basically I'm doing it for myself. So whenever I hear girls come on the channel and they start saying, but what about me? You just talk about men. It's like, I'm not doing it for you, sweetheart. Go somewhere else. Like 99% of the internet is for you. Like you can't have me just talking from a male perspective. So I don't actually have a problem with women talking on my channel. And we've got a few women that come in regularly and they're fine. They're not trying to bait. They're not using the whole flirting thing, which is good. They're just kind of listening and talking and fine. But there's not very many women like that. And look, I have nothing against women, but I'm not kind of making my content for women because like I said, 99% of the internet is actually geared towards them. So if I'm not making content that sort of gives them any info, if they get nothing from it, well, there's all the rest of the internet that they can go to. Mikhail, what's your diet? Anything special you do? For a while now, I've been intermittent fasting in the mornings. Today, I actually did a fairly long one, not intentionally, but I just had a lot of work to do. And by the time I looked up, the sun was already going down and I hadn't eaten all day. So my body was going through autophagy already. But usually I won't eat till about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then I'll stop eating just after sunset. That's usually like between 7 to 9 max, usually around 7. So usually intermittent fasting, I think, is like an 8-hour window on average, but it's best not to have breakfast. But my diet's not special. I just try and eat healthy. I don't eat junk food. I exercise. Again, common sense stuff. But aside from the intermittent fasting, I don't really do anything out of the ordinary except for sensible exercise and eating as healthy as I can. And then when I go out with family and friends, if people are getting a pizza, it's not like I'm going to deny myself, but I'll just get the healthiest pizza. So I'll get, I don't know, vegetarian or chicken or something. So I'm not too anal about it, but when I'm on my own, I try and be as clean as possible because I give myself an excuse to enjoy life as well. We've been going for 45 minutes, fellas. Last time I actually stuffed up. The last live stream that I think I usually start at 11 a.m. and I started at an hour earlier, 10 a.m. And when I looked at the clock, I said, okay, we've been going for an hour and a half, but we've been going for 2 hours and a half. So the last one was unintentionally long, but it flew by. It was a good one though. But yeah, I want to try and keep these about an hour, just over max. I think they're nice, so I can do them more frequently and more casually, and more people can drop in rather than doing a massive like multi-hour stream. No one's going to watch it. You don't want to sit through it, and yeah. Okay. Highlight your questions, guys. Otherwise, I'm just scrolling through all the comments. Christopher asks, why is it when men find another person cheating, when a woman finds one person or multiple, it's name tag, tangle man, and complicate? Not sure what you mean, Christopher. Not sure what you mean by the question, sorry. Class crasher. So I sometimes feel that my moral compass is holding me back. People with lower morals seem to thrive, and even though I don't want to be less than I am, I sometimes wonder if life wouldn't be easier. Look, I think about it too. The stupid, the reckless, the people who can't control the impulses, you know, they're producing kids, but then they're suffering, their lives are awful, you can't have conversations with them. Think about the people in their lives, like try spending time with them. You can't, I go nuts around them. So in some ways you think, well, they're blissfully ignorant and they can actually live in that environment, but I know I can't. It's historically as well, if you look at the literature too, the more intellectually curious you are, the more intelligent you are, and it's not me putting down people with a lower IQ or a higher IQ or whatever, you know, it's just the way it is. The smarter you are, you think about things more. You're less impulsive. If you see the environment is dangerous, you think twice about reproduction. You think twice about who you're going to reproduce with. It makes sense. So could you live with yourself by saying, oh, you know, who cares? I'll impregnate anyone. I'll just have kids. And then I know what the consequences will be, but who cares? Let me just do it. And then afterwards, you'll spend the rest of your life going, I knew better than this. See, it's different if you didn't know better. That's why they can do it so easily, because afterwards they might be trying to figure it out, or later on they get aware and awake and red-pilled or whatever. But to know you're going to do something stupid, I think it plays on your conscience a lot more when you knew you shouldn't, you did, and then you're left with the bad results afterwards. It's like a guy who knows he should wear a condom, he doesn't, and then he gets a woman pregnant, or he gets some sort of terminal disease or something like that, you know. And you knew better than that. Arch, in reply to your question, human, I've noticed women get tattoos for attention. Tattoo question. I've noticed women get tattoos for attention and conversation starter when they're out in Friday night, whereas men tend to get them for themselves. I've noticed that too. My brother-in-law, he's got sleeve tattoos, and when I first asked him about it, he said the thing that annoyed him the most is every girl would find it an excuse to come up to him and go and touch him and go, oh my God, what does that mean? It looks so nice. And he's like, oh, I wish I never got them. These things are personal to me. Like, I don't want to have to explain it to everyone. Whereas women, when I meet them, they just want to talk about them. They want to tell you about the meaning, whether it's tattoos of their kids' names, so forth. There's a story about it. I got this one in, you know, when I was hiking through Spain and so forth. So, yeah, I believe you, man. And you work in the industry, so that just confirms what I've always thought. Men get them for themselves because there's meaning, and women get them for social reasons, which I think it's sort of a woman's life as well. If a man goes on holiday, he tends to do it for himself and his own interests. If there wasn't social media, cameras, and she couldn't tell anyone, I don't think many women would be into traveling as well for the exact same reasons that they get tattoos. It's like everything revolves around being social for them. Not everything, most things. Careful about your language, gentlemen. Burkhardt, why do both men and women instantly assume you're gay or bi if you're remotely critical of female nature? Always happens to me with new people. Yeah, it's the only reflex. It's kind of like if a woman's suggestive and she wants to go out with you or wants to sleep with you and you go, no, thank you. It's like, are you gay? It's kind of like, I think I've told a woman once, I go, man, you've got an ego. It's like, because I don't want you, you think you're that good? Like, women kind of know that the power they have over men. Upwards of 90% of men, even below average women, all they have to say is, let's sleep together, and a man will say yes, he'll go along with it. A man's biology will jump at any chance of reproduction. You only have to look at TV series. I mean, I just look at Game of Thrones. Anytime a woman wanted to sort of manipulate a man, she'd just drop her dress and then sex would happen. You look at any series, a woman just wants to have sex and it just starts happening because she starts taking her clothes off. A man doesn't ever object. He's not like, no, I can't. Maybe if a man's married, he goes, I can't, I'm married. But if the guy's not married and the guy's not gay and the woman's attractive, a man never does it for ethical reasons. A man never resists for ethical or moral reasons. It's always like, okay. A woman taking her clothes off basically just short circuits a man's brain. Brian, what's your thoughts about Ken Wilber? He's an author, isn't he? I remember him. If I remember correctly, Ken Wilber, I think I've read a few of his things. Yes, I remember him. He's got a shaved head. Yes, I remember him now. I think from what I've read, very astute guy. Very, very smart, and he goes very deep spiritually, but not in a way that's wishy-washy. I need to actually read more of him, but I remember from what I've read, Thanks for jogging my memory. I don't mind him from my memory, but I can't recall much of him at the moment. I remember Quasimandias has read a fair bit of him. And when he mentioned him, I had the same reaction. I need to go back and read some more of his stuff because he is good from memory. Mint says, how do you handle sexism against men in personal interaction? Many seem to think that sexism only goes one way, male sexism against female, and it's not possible to go the other direction. I just talk like this and let them know that it can go in the other direction too. Basically, I try and talk as much like this with people in the normal world as much as I can when these topics come up. I don't force it down people's throats. Don't keep quiet about this stuff. If this stuff is important to you, learn to exercise it through your vocabulary. Learn how to speak it. A good way, as I've said in the past, is write down your thoughts. See how you write. See if you can train yourself to speak more like you write, and that takes practice. So how do you handle it? Don't stay quiet when people are talking at a coffee shop or at a barbecue and they're talking the usual men are pigs and all the men stay quiet. Don't stay quiet. Talk intelligently. Don't be an arsehole. And if they start spurging out and getting violent, let them showcase how rude they are and unintelligent while you're being intelligent. Be the bigger person in the room. Women don't like feeling shame. You can actually shame them intelligently, where you can show that all of a sudden they're not as smart as you just because they're spurging out, and especially because they hold no authority over you. She's not my girlfriend or anything. Not that that will make a difference, but she has no authority. We're talking about an issue. So try and just be honest, guys. That doesn't mean being rude. Smart Guy says, I'm facing this now. Retirement is a hard concept if your profession largely defines who you are and validates your worth. Not an easy transition. It's not. But that's the cycle. I think this next sort of stage for men in our stage in civilization is now men psychologically coming to terms with themselves. When there was societal structures where men and women sort of on autopilot could get along through life fairly easily, and if you weren't wired for it, you really didn't have to get into philosophy or really mentally struggle with anything. But now you really sort of have to. For men, that's the big challenge these days, to be interested enough in this stuff to figure it out on your own terms, form your own philosophy, be interested enough in your own psychology, because your survival out there kind of needs it more than ever. Am I in focus? Okay, onward. Nico, what camera do you use for recording? I'm getting into videography. This one's a Panasonic GH5 with a Leica 15mm f1.7 with a variable ND, and I've got through my streaming software, I've actually added a LUT through it, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff. But basically, that's the camera. Christopher, your thoughts and Hyder break covert contract. I'm not sure what you mean, Christopher. I don't understand the question. Sorry. You YouTube. So you eat from 1 to 7 non-stop? No. I just eat normally. Usually I have 1 or 2 meals. Most of the time, if I'm sort of fairly busy through the day, I have 1 main meal and 1 or 2 snacks through the day in between. You're not as hungry when you get older. Mario, hey human, how are you? It's Mr. Sam. Hey man, how you going? From Discord. Yeah, guys, don't forget, if you're familiar with Discord, don't forget to drop in there if you feel like having a chat. There's always guys in there. If you've got a microphone, you can drop in and talk with some of us. I drop in when I've got time, but there's always a group of guys talking about interesting topics, I hope. Sorry, why do you think self-reflection is so rare in today's society? Sorry for the last time when I kept asking the same question. Didn't know there was that big of a lag. Yeah, I know. Not your fault. I get annoyed with the lag and the jumping as well. Self-reflection's rare because most people don't need to. Most women don't need to. Men are now, it's almost a necessity to self-reflect. As I said, be interested enough in your thinking and how you speak and how you convey your thinking, because your survival's at stake. If you're tossed to the side and you're made irrelevant, a man expressing himself and like showing he's alive, reflecting and speaking and so forth is a way to kind of struggle and show you're alive and do something with your life. You could do something before with your life where you were just polite. Like you look at the old style movies where men had Brill cream and dressed in suits and smoked cigars, and they were all more or less a carbon copy of each other, and women were a carbon copy of each other. And you could kind of pair up, you know, there was a general stereotype of a man, a respectable stereotype of a man, a respectable stereotype of a woman, and people kind of got along, partnered up, and you had the outliers, you know, more confident men, more violent men, more extreme men, but most of us clustered in the middle. Now we're spread out everywhere. Now it's very individual. So I think self-reflection is more pertinent for men now because they're so invisible, they're blamed for everything and they're trying to figure it out. And so because you go, I'm supposed to be, everything's my fault. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. All the stories my parents told me about getting married, so it just doesn't work. It's a different environment. You start thinking and trying to figure out why, and that leads to self-reflection. I think women will start to more as time goes on, but their self-reflection will be different to men because I think men, because as I've said, there's nothing beyond man. He really needs to take responsibility for everything. When men introspect, they introspect the whole thing from start to finish because they need to be, because when everything's taken away, they have to have everything in place. They're left with nothing. So there needs to be some structure there. Whereas people who are used to being taken care of, like children or women, they can kind of be a bit responsible, but they know there's some sort of societal or biological soft landing. As I said, you know, you need 1 woman for every 100 men. So women kind of know, don't worry, I'll generally be okay compared to men. I can afford to be reckless. I can afford not to think. I don't need to be. Why would I be interested in philosophy? Why would I need to be interested in anything outside of my own subjective needs? I mean, that's why women don't generally gravitate towards STEM subjects. They don't care about, you know, quantum physics and, you know, sort of biology, like really molecular biology, DNA, hadron colliders and, you know, space and mathematics and things like that. So it's introspection and self-reflection really clusters more around men because men find it more necessary in a survival sense, I think. Dunstan, what advice would you give to a young guy who's doing it tough right now due to lockdown and everything else? Learn. I don't really know what advice to give other than don't consume too much social media. Social media, I don't really see, in terms of the effects and the conditioning aspect of it, the lines are starting to become really blurred between social media and porn. Everything's becoming a conditioned sort of addiction. So spend less time around that. Play video games. That's probably a better idea than consuming social media. Everyone kind of talks about, video games. That's a lot healthier, man. You're exposed to story. You're exposed to entertainment. There's usually morals. There's kind of a lot of logic and sort of a concatenation of stages and things that make sense in terms of connection, in terms of stories. And, you get this. If I build up enough of this, I get these points, I get this reward, I go to this stage. Makes a lot more sense. Everything else, from porn to social media, everything else seems masturbatory and a waste of time, and it depletes you. So I would say don't consume so much of it, and distract yourself with constructive things, even if they are entertainment, like video games. Have I done any prepping this year? No. Not things like stocking guns and cans and bunkers and things like that. No. All right, let's get through the rest of these questions. Xmest, hey human. Hey man. Mario, how different was the sexual marketplace when you were younger? How is it currently? It was still challenging, but you kind of developed the courage. You had to ask, unless you asked the girl out, you didn't get a chance, but you kind of saw the pattern of most guys who had the courage to ask a girl out. It was like 50-50. Or you got a sense of, if the girl smiled and if she liked you, girls would sort of show genuine signals that they were approachable. And then when you saw that they were smiling and they talked to you, you could tell they liked you. If you asked them out, it was almost 90% guaranteed they'd say yes. What I see today, both dating as an older guy, I see similar stories between me and when I talk to young guys now. It's the same game. What the games that women play and the toughness of it today, both my age and younger guys, they're going through the same thing. There's very little common sense to it. It's very different to when I was younger. I mean, even just the fact of building up the courage to ask a girl out was a really nice way of developing some sort of character within yourself, even though it was more rational. You could see that the only thing stopping you, because the girl was smiling, you could tell she was interested. Come on, human. The only thing stopping you is fear. Do it, do it, do it. And then you'd overcome it because logically that was the only thing stopping you. It wasn't anything else. And then you'd get the reward. You'd go out. Maybe it wouldn't work out. Whereas these days, you just don't know. Nothing makes sense. Or if you go out, there's no interest. She's got 100 other people on the phone that she's waiting to go out with. You're kind of someone that's mildly interesting. Whereas back then, the girl that you were asking out, you really didn't. She was the only girl you were fixated on. Like, you really honed in on, I really like her. You didn't like 100 things. And you were more focused, not just on her because you asked her out. You were focused on your hobbies. Now we split our focus from partners to playing online, our social media feeds. We're splitting our attention everywhere. And as such, we're not experiencing any kind of potency in life in any one aspect. Okay. Human, why don't you grow out your beard? I did. As I said in a previous stream, I always have stubble. Sometimes I let it grow out, but I sleep on my stomach and then it itches me when I lie on my pillow. But also, I've got a lot of salt and pepper. I'm waiting for it to sort of go all white. I really want to get a white beard. I think that'll look really cool because right now is just half and half. I'm not a big fan of it, but I like it more like this. I don't know, but it'll get longer. Depends on how I feel. JW, how do you handle negativity in your personal, professional life? I don't have much. I left the corporate area like years ago because it was toxic, HR, a lot of stuff that I didn't like. And basically, where I work now, just a bunch of guys. Go to environments that are your kind of people. Don't hang around toxic people. Don't fight them. Don't go online on Reddit and fight feminists and so forth. If you can't have civil conversations, even if it's with people who have different opinions, just don't be there because you're not going to change those people. Brian said, any 4K camera will do. The human eye can only detect so much detail. That's true. I don't know what question that was in response to. So would you rather marry, if you had to, a bad woman in a society with good laws or a good woman in a society with bad laws? Bad as in extremely anti-male and gynocentric. Yeah, because I'd have to live with her. If I had to, if I could choose her, if she was hot, probably in a society with good laws. But then again, you'd need to live with her. So that would probably, are we talking good laws as in like hundreds of years ago? Where if she was a real piece of work, I could have a mistress on the side and barely speak to her. But then again, no, that's an awful choice, man. Because then what kind of mother is she going to be to my kids? What values is she going to... No. On balance, because women unrestrained by social norms, like today, when left to them on their own so they can actually show of themselves as an individual how good they can be, they aren't. Because they don't need to be. As I said, you can't give sperm away, but each egg is worth a few $1,000, you know? So women know how valuable they are, and there's an arrogance that comes with that in a society where they say, you're an angel, you can do no wrong, it's never your fault. JW, do you still date? I haven't for a while now. I've been on one or two first or second dates in the last year, but I don't have much of an interest in it now. I kind of, every now and then I might casually look, or if I get sort of messaged on one of the dating sites I'm on, but a lot has happened in the last year that I'm not that interested as well. So... Christopher, you ever do pick game? Not sure what you mean, Christopher. Joe, I believe female nagging was here always inside family, but nowadays it became social discourse. Man is raised from the childhood by blame and shame. Do you agree? Yeah, but there was the balance of mother and father. So when you're in front of mother and father, I remember with my family, my mother would never put down my father. She would never make him look stupid. Even if he was wrong, she'd privately tell him afterwards, not in front of other people, hey, you're wrong, this was A, B, and C. And my father would also respect her in public. So there was a way of respecting each other and knowing each other's roles in relation to raising kids. The father would largely have the final say when it came to his son, and the wife would have largely final say with the daughter. A lot of that stuff's gone, especially with single mothers. V. Riger, have you ever hung out with artistic women, human? I wonder if creative women are more interesting to date. They are, but depends. There's some of them that are in the scene because they're a bit... Because in depending on what's part of the creative scene and how extreme you go, whether it's music or art. Again, we talked about tattoos. Some of them go extremes, taking drugs, drink a lot. They're just looking for attention, and some of them get into that scene because there's a lot of cachet in art. There's sort of like the creative arena is a lot of fun. It's probably analogous to women and going on holiday. So there's the women that love going traveling, and then there's these kind of hipster creative women that have tattoos, and they kind of do little doodles in sketchbooks and do interpretive dance and stuff. But are they really creative? But if you're a creative person, at least there's stuff to talk about. There's common ground. So depends on the person. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee, though. Chester, how do you feel about women advocating for men? Would you say most of them have an ill intention for clout? I don't know. Some do. I think you can kind of glean a little bit from how they speak. I'm not sure if they're saying things that make sense. Who cares? As long as that message is getting across. But some of them you can actually tell how clever and how smart and intelligent they are, and how well-meaning they are. You just look at someone like Girl Writes What. That's an example of someone that's not only a great ally, but she genuinely cares about men, and she's pissed off at the way women are treating men. Whereas you get some other women today you see on channels, you're not quite sure, you're a bit skeptical where they're coming from. You need to use your own assessment. Again, why it's good to think about a lot of this stuff. So then whatever presents itself in life, I think you'll have an easier time judging it because you can trust yourself. Because you're paying attention, you've got your radar on, you've got your glasses on. They don't just need to say, oh, I'm anti-feminist, and then you go, okay, I love you. Some of these questions are very broad, though. Christopher says, what are your thoughts on the differences of commitment between men and women? Yeah, it's a broad one. I mean, just quickly off the top of my head, something I mentioned in my last video is I think most women approach relationships like they go on holidays. It's an adventure. I know myself, when I want to have a relationship with a woman, when I know it's love, it's where it feels like home, not a holiday. Women, I think, mostly date and they love the cycle of dating just like they like it going shopping. It's a repetitive thing, whereas men kind of like it to settle down and become normalized and feel like home. Women date like they're on a holiday. Men date like they want to live somewhere, like they want to call somewhere home. That's what I've noticed in the differences between commitment levels, as a quick answer. Burkhat Owen, what are the societal countries in history that you consider truly androcentric? I don't know off the top of my head. Good question. I'll need to come back to you. I'm going to waste too much time thinking about it. I don't know off the top of my head. All right, we've been going for just over an hour. I think I'll just fly through the rest of the questions and we'll call it a night. And then I'll be on again in, 9 hours. Aren't I nice? Christoph, what are your thoughts on the difference between commitment? Oh, no, you. See, I hate it when the stream jumps and I'm reading a question that's already been asked. Sorry about that. Mario, yeah. If my beard was kind of smooth and straight, it wouldn't be as bad, but I kind of get a really bushy beard. Aylin, how much influence do you think a mother's behaviour has on young girls in regarding the future relations with men? How much do you think genetics has to do with it? A lot. I think given that more and more women are raising children alone and that they don't know how to raise boys into men, only men do, and their fathers aren't there, and all the young boys get from their mums is dad was bad, men are bad, look how mum's got it, how hard mum's got it, men are awful, in the media men are awful, it's all my fault. So a boy's just kind of told, he kind of has this submissive, all my fault kind of posture, whereas she's building up, I mean, women already are built up to be valued just by being female. But then if you told your society and the mothers saying, you got to fight because men are awful and you're fantastic and that's the way you're going to survive. Couple that with the fact that women don't mentor their daughters like men mentor boys, where an older man, if he's done mistakes in his life, he will eat humble pie, reflect, and he will teach younger men, don't make the same mistakes as me. I was wrong. Don't do this. Don't waste your life. Women, because they barely ever feel guilt and they don't like to feel shame, they will double down as they get older. You see these feminists who have got white hair and they're almost in the grave. They are still blaming the patriarchy, blaming men for all their problems. I don't think it's going well because women can't sort of admit their faults and say sorry that easily. And that's the way they're raising their young girls, to take on their bitterness. And like, it's no wonder you're getting generations of women blaming men more and more and telling men to sort of man up more and more, because you can just imagine how they were taught by their mothers. LT Redhawk, what do you do when you lose your will to keep moving forward? I've reached the point where I'm tired of the game. I have lost all interest in even trying anymore. I'm 20 and I've already had enough. Well, if it's that bad, I would highly suggest trying to find possibly help if you've got no friends to talk to, because the first thing I'd say is, I'm not going to give a glib answer in terms of like find a hobby or go to the gym or anything like that. You know your own life. If none of your hobbies are working for you, if you've got no friends to talk to, if all your friends are nihilists as well, it's no good to surround yourself with negative people too. I would, if it's that bad, I would get help, but don't go to typical therapists because most of them are female. Find a male therapist if you can. And I think there's more of them out there that focus on helping men with their issues. I'm not a big advocate of therapy just because it's so awash gynocentrically. But if you don't have friends, you don't have things to wake up for, you don't have that will, and no one around you supporting you, you've got no one to talk to, I would get professional help. I wouldn't know what to give you as a quick answer, but that would be my suggestion. All right. Sohan, do you think single parenthood could work if fathers by default got custody of sons and mothers by default had daughters? Ooh, interesting. Maybe. But then would you get the problem where, as time went on, women would secretly abort boys and just tell the husbands, oh, we lost the child, knowing that they would have less control over a baby boy? But yeah, theoretically, that may work to a degree. Again, all these aren't catch-all problem solvers, I don't think, but some of them conceptually seem like they might bear fruit. All right, guys, I think I've kind of answered most of the questions. We've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. I think that's a good one. I'll do another one in the morning, so I'm going to go and get some sleep. And thank you, everyone, for chiming in. Yeah, it was a good one. I might do a different color grade for tomorrow morning's live stream. For any of you, I might see you then. But for the rest of you, thanks for joining in, and I'll see you next time. See you guys.